Today I'm going to show you how to make the best coffee cake ever. Did you know that most coffee cakes don't contain any actual coffee? This is actually a sour cream based cake with a brown sugar cinnamon layer in the middle and a crunchy streusel topping. You're going to love how perfectly moist this cake turns out with just the right level of sweetness to enjoy with, you guessed it, a cup of coffee. I'm going to start off with the cake part. So here I have 190 grams of all-purpose flour. That's also 1.5 cups. Here I have 2 teaspoons of baking powder and 3/4 of a teaspoon of salt. I'm just going to mix that together so it's well combined, and then we can set that aside. Now in a larger bowl, we're going to cream together 1/2 cup of butter. So I'll just get that started with a regular spoon. You can also do this with an electric mixer, but I just like using a spoon. My butter is very soft, you can see. Now I'm going to add in 1 cup of sugar. So maybe I'll just get half going for now. And the other half I'll add in. Doing it in 2 parts is a little easier, whether you're doing it by hand or with the mixer. By the way, if you're looking for the complete printable recipe for this coffee cake, I've linked it in the description below. So I've been creaming this for about 3 or 4 minutes, and you can see how light and fluffy that is. That's what you want it to look like. Now I'm going to add 2 room temperature eggs, 1 at a time. Do make sure that they're room temperature. Cold eggs straight from the fridge just don't incorporate very nicely in most baked goods. So here comes egg number 2. You want to get that really nicely incorporated. Now I'm going to add 3/4 of a cup of sour cream, also room temperature, and 1.5 teaspoons of vanilla. You can just eyeball that. All right, now we'll just mix that together. This is looking so marvelous. All right, now I'm going to take that dry flour mixture and add this in 2 parts. If you're using an electric mixer, stop using it and do this part by hand. Using your spoon or a rubber spatula is perfect. So I'm going to add the first amount, and now we'll add the rest in. Just like so. We're just going to mix that in. You don't want to over mix it, or you can develop a lot of gluten and your cake will turn out tough. I'm going to switch to the spatula to do this, because it's a lot easier to scrape the sides of the bowl and get everything mixed in there. All right, reach down to the bottom, make sure there's no pockets of flour, and that's how you make the cake part. Now we're going to make that cinnamon filling layer that goes in the middle, and I'm just using the same bowl that I used for the dry ingredients. For that, we need 1/2 cup of brown sugar, 1/4 cup of flour, and 1 teaspoon of cinnamon. I'm just going to mix that all together. You can get in there with your fingers if that brown sugar isn't sort of dispersing. You want to break up all those little lumps so it's a nice dusty mixture. Now it's time to assemble the cake. So we're going to take half of the batter, and you can just eyeball this. And you can see here that I have a 9-inch cake pan that I've greased around the sides, and I lined the bottom with parchment paper. And I highly recommend you use one of these offset spatulas to spread it really evenly in the bottom of the pan. It makes it so much easier. And you want to get right to the edges of the pan and make it as even as possible. And by the way, right now you should be preheating your oven to 350 degrees Fahrenheit. All right, that looks pretty good. Now let's take that cinnamon mixture and sprinkle it right over top. Just dump that evenly right over that first layer. It's going to look like a lot at first, but not to worry, it's going to be just the right amount. Now we have to spread the remaining batter over top of the cinnamon sugar layer nice and evenly. And the best way to do that is by dolloping it here and there. If you just dump it right in the middle, it's going to be very messy to try and spread it out to the edges. So doing it this way gives it a bit of a head start to making it nice and even. Okay, and coming in again with the offset spatula, we can just very carefully spread it evenly again over that cinnamon sugar layer. Again, you want to go right to the edge. When I was in culinary school, I always thought these offset spatulas were useless unless you were a cake decorator. But now I have a different attitude towards them. Alright, that looks pretty even. Now we're going to make the cinnamon streusel topping that goes over this cake. And yes, you guessed it, I'm using that dry ingredients bowl for a third time because I hate washing dishes. We're going to start with 3/4 of a cup of brown sugar, half a cup of all-purpose flour, 1 teaspoon of cinnamon, and 1/4 teaspoon of salt. You want to have that salt in there because baked goods taste really flat when it's just the sweetness of the sugar. You want to have that salt in there to balance out the flavor. Just going to break that up a little bit with my fingers. And now I'm going to add 1/4 cup of butter. And for this part, you definitely want to use your fingers. Go ahead and really get in there to break up that butter. Now, some people like to chill their butter a little bit before doing a streusel topping. I've also heard of people melting the butter. So I guess it's really just a matter of preference, how you want to make it. Whatever you do, you're looking for a mixture that looks really crumbly like this. It's almost kind of like damp sand. You don't want it to be so wet that you can't sprinkle it like this, but dry enough so that you can really call it a streusel topping. All right, now we're gonna take our cake and evenly sprinkle this right over top. By the way, if you're enjoying this video, please let me know by hitting that like button. And if you don't like this video, well then go ahead and hit the unlike button. But at least let me know about it in the comments. Be fair so I know where to improve here. Alright, here we have our finished coffee cake ready to go into the oven. We're going to bake it for 50 to 55 minutes, or until the top springs back when you press it lightly in the middle. See how it kind of comes back when you press lightly on it? It doesn't leave a little well at all. That means it's fully cooked. Also, if you stick a toothpick in the middle like this, it should come out perfectly clean. There shouldn't be any wet batter on there at all. Of course, every oven is different and your cake might take a few minutes longer to bake. Regardless, you're gonna have to wait at least an hour before you cut into it. You can certainly enjoy this warm. And that's actually how I recommend you serve this. Bake the same day after about an hour or two of cooling. You're going to notice that that brown sugar and cinnamon streusel on top is going to be ever so slightly crunchy, which is a beautiful contrast to that moist cake. I really want you to see how lovely this looks up close. Look at how close textured that crumb is, and that cinnamon and brown sugar layer in the middle is just perfect for this. It's kind of a star trademark for any classic coffee cake like this one. And like I mentioned in the beginning of the video, most coffee cakes don't actually contain any coffee. They're called coffee cake because you enjoy it with a cup of coffee. So now that we have that cleared up, let's dig in and give this a taste. This is exactly why I have to voice over this part of the video. If I did this in real time, I'd be talking with my mouth full, and I don't want to do that to you. You can see how nicely this can sit on the fork so it's not crumbly at all. And as for the flavor, well, can I give it a score of perfection? Because I think that's what it is. Just look at how that fork sinks so nicely into that moist cake. And by moist, I don't exactly mean that it's pillowy and soft moist. A classic coffee cake isn't supposed to be that way. Rather, this has a texture that's pleasantly dense yet still melt in your mouth at the same time. And you'll be happy to know that you can customize this cake to make it any flavor you want. Maybe you'll want to try putting some apple slices in that middle layer, or some peach slices or blueberries. The sky's the limit. This is a blank canvas. You do whatever you want. Because I know that either way, this cake is going to be your next masterpiece.